It will be a fight.
And there'll be a lot of death, unfortunately.
It will be a fight we will win.
But a lot less death. But there will be death.
People should be actually kept out of the country for at least 28 days.
America is not prepared.
G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Butterfield Effect podcast for another week. Oh, what a bloody fantastic life this is when you get delivered this piece, this little morsel of deliciousness every single week. It's very exciting. I agree. Ladies and gentlemen, this week's show is going to be really, really different because we're going to talk to someone who has the ability to talk from the other side of where we sort of sit as a group of people. And I think that's really important, to have that ability to cross the road, if you will, into the wokeness. And this is someone who has crossed the road back from the wokeness. But before we get stuck into that, if you haven't already followed the Butterfield Effect Clips channel on YouTube, subscribe to them. You need to do that this fucking minute, bruh. All right, let me tell you that right now. Okay, I'll tell you why. Because if you do that right now, you will go into the draw to win this fantastic bit of merch. As you can see, it's the Fuck You to the Moon. They are sold out on the website, but I still have a couple more hanging around. So make sure you do that, ladies and gentlemen. If you do that in the next 2 weeks, we will draw someone out and give them away a massive merch pack. But today, on the show, ladies and gentlemen, we have a young lady from the United States of America who has been a part of YouTube for a very long time. She is part of the LBGT community plus and all that type of business. She's a lesbian YouTuber who has been recently extremely outspoken about leaving the progressive left. Now, she also has been labelled a lot of things in the media, and I thought I would take this opportunity to jump on here and really ask her a few questions about what had happened to her and why she decided to speak out and come out against the group that she was associated with and sort of just change sides, if you will. And, I mean, you know, she did that in a way where she risked her entire YouTube channel, her career, and her platform by doing so. So I thought that's a very brave thing to do, and I think that's something we should be very, very positive towards if she has her ducks in a row. And I think she does in this situation. So this is my chat with the very kind, the very nice Arielle Scarcella. Arielle, welcome to the show. The quote, most hated lesbian on YouTube. That's very
honestly, probably.
Nice.
Probably.
Where has that come from?
Oh my God! After years of being a second wave feminist who has a lot of opinions that are considered controversial but actually aren't, I would say. Yeah, I mean, I touch pun intended in some cases, topics that other people are afraid to, but ones that everybody needs to talk about.
Yeah.
I go into the nitty gritty and I feel like somebody has to take the brunt of the hate for speaking about these things. It's going to be me. And that's fine as long as I know I'm doing my part in society to make a difference.
I've watched a fair few of your videos and gone through some articles that people have written about you, namely people from like Pink News and stuff like that.
Oh, God.
And
we call them penis news. Penis news.
Penis news. Right.
Penis
okay.
News.
Why penis news?
Because it's all guys, mostly all men that are incredibly misogynistic, like actually
right.
misogynistic. Yeah. Like I'm not using that word lightly, like, the SJWs do, but yeah, I think they hate on, they're extremely, extremely progressive, liberal, crazy, woke left. They don't even give anybody with a differing opinion a chance.
Yeah.
And it's always females that present and are women that they hate on more than anybody else, which is a shame.
So you describe yourself as a second wave feminist. What does a second wave feminist mean? I mean, the first wave, are we talking the women's suffrage movement? Are we talking, equal rights for women in the day-to-day?
Right.
And
yeah.
Second wave would be?
To me, the second wave is more inclusive of LGBT rights, but also being sex positive. And the third wave, or even fourth wave at this point, I don't even know, are people that are just basically science deniers, you know, and anybody can be a woman and anybody can be female. And it's like, there has to be a line that's drawn, because some of these, you know, the rights or some of the social implications of the laws that are being changed have big social implications, right? We now have people that are saying that they are trans women, and they might very well be, but have not transitioned in any sense of the word, competing in female sports, dominating female sports, not every time, but a lot of the time. We have people that are, you know, calling themselves trans women that identify as lesbians, and then hating on people that are female like myself that only want to date women that have vaginas, you know, like lesbians that only want to, or straight men that only want to date women with vaginas. And like, that shouldn't be a controversial statement, right? Which is why I don't like calling myself a feminist, because you're automatically, you know, placed in the box with these new third wave feminists or fourth wave feminists that, you know, everybody is valid in their own way and everybody is special. And I'm like, yes, but no, like, you have to have, like, that there has to be a definition, you know, a set definition on words for us to make sense of, and for us to write laws around, right? For it to make sense to, you know, society.
Why do you think there is such a push, or such a big movement of people who become a woman seemingly out of nowhere? Like, is it a depression thing? They feel like, because I much like you, genuinely believe that transgender people feel within themselves that they were born in the wrong body. And if you want to be a woman or a man, if it makes you happy and it doesn't affect anybody else, baby, you do it. You go for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly. I think there's a push, not necessarily to be a woman. I think it's actually the opposite. I think there's a big push to be anything other than a woman. And when I say woman, I mean somebody that's, you know, presenting female. Like, they might not technically be female, but they're presenting as a woman. I think people are actually straying away from that. I think most people that are female, that identify as like LGBT in some way, or identify as queer, are claiming all these other different identities to become, maybe they want to become more oppressed. Maybe they just don't want to be women. You know, I posted something on Twitter. I retweeted something on Twitter yesterday from a therapist that I follow that works closely with transgender youth. And she was quoting one of her clients or something that she saw online. And it said something like, "I'm asexual and polyamorous." And she's like, literally, that just means that you like having a lot of friends. So it's like, you know, like, yeah, does asexuality exist? Probably. Does polyamory exist? Yes. But like, when you use certain words together, it literally just means words that have existed for all time. So like, why are we changing the way we say things, and why are we changing the words to mean something that already exists?
Why are you double handling it? Like,
why are you right? And to me, it's because I agree with you. I think it's more oppression points. They want more labels on themselves, and I'm a big fan of labels, but not when you're using it to oppress yourself and to victimize yourself. I'm not a fan of that.
With the labels now. I guess people who are gay, they have that label. That is a label, right? You know, I mean, it's right. Straight people don't really use it as a. I mean, I guess some straight people do. Maybe some straight people just don't even think about it. Can that label be positive? Because I know a lot of the labels that are thrown around, like, you have to belong to this certain club, you have to be a part of this certain group to be welcome. So you think that labels can be really positive as well?
I think labels can be used as negative or positive. I think these types of people use them for whatever whatever the agenda is for them at the moment. Sure. So if somebody is LGBT, you know, or oppressed, or in their mind, whatever the hell they're trying to say, they will use labels like, listen to Black trans women, listen to trans people, listen to gay men, listen to and then it's like, at the same time, they'll also say, I hate cis straight white men, which is also a label, but they say like everybody is valid, but no, not cis straight white men. Like, do you see what I'm saying? So they'll use different labels and different ways of, they'll use the labels as as they see fit. It could be labels can mean a good thing, you know, if you're oppressed, I guess, and if you're seen as the patriarchy or white supremacy or whatever, they'll use the labels that haven't even been given to you by yourself, right? Like, you don't call yourself a cis straight white man, probably. You just probably call yourself your name.
Yeah.
And they'll impose that on you and say, listen, you know, you can't speak because you have privilege, or you can't speak because you're white, or you can't speak on this because whatever.
Yeah.
So I think they use it in whatever way benefits them at the moment.
Yeah. It gives people brownie points, in my opinion.
100% virtue signaling. 100%.
Yeah, and I guess that's what virtue signaling is too. It's brownie points. It's a modern version.
Yeah, it's like, look how non-racist I am. Look how non-sexist I am. What, you know, which actually is not true in their case. They're very sexist in my opinion. But
yeah,
you know,
it's a strange thing that is like sexism is rampant throughout the feminist movement, and I get it. I get it, because a lot of women are treated like shit by dudes and vice versa. But I just don't think your own personal experience can write off a whole gender.
Right. I agree with you.
There are so many people that come out and you know, you've had your, over the last, 4 months since you put out your Leaving the Progressive Left video, you've had attack pieces come out. And before that as well, you've had a lot of attack
for
pieces.
years.
Yeah. And based on your opinions on certain subjects, and if you don't toe the line, then you are the devil. You are the evil side of everything that they are fighting against. And I feel like you, and not just you particularly, but people who are these far right people, these people who are labeled far right, like me. Like, I'm not far right at all. I don't, you know, for me, basically, I've got, like what I think most people should have, you know, pick the best from the left and the best from the right, and then sit in the middle.
That's what I do.
Absolutely.
That's what I feel like I do, which is why I get hate from both sides.
Yeah.
But I still stand by my morals. Yeah.
And as you should. You need to be this martyr for your own opinions.
Of course.
It is dangerous to have opinions in the modern world. And I mean, I was mentioning this to Zuby last week.
I love him.
He's a great dude. Since COVID, I basically made a career off just seeing ridiculous things and going, this is just outrageous, and here's why. And then COVID came out, and everyone started getting along just for a couple of weeks, and I was freaking the fuck out. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to make?
How am I going to make my money?
And then post-COVID, or since it hasn't been as big of an issue, still a big issue in America and in parts of Australia now as well, it's kicking back off, but people have just lost the plot. They have lost their minds, and now more than ever, it's all about groups. It's all about labels. It's like, you know, there is so much division everywhere, and I'm totally speaking out of my ass here, but I feel like gay, lesbian people have been fighting for so long to be welcome everywhere, which I feel, and you know, maybe you disagree, but I feel, particularly in my life, they're welcome everywhere, everywhere I go. Anyway. Does this division just make it more difficult for people to take, you know, your lifestyle, which doesn't affect anybody else, but for some reason people really, you know, need to talk about it? Do you think division just makes it harder to be your normal everyday self? 100%.
That's why I made that video, like that video that went viral. That's why I made it. It got to the point where I tell this in any interview that I do, anytime I talk about this, I tell this story. In November, I went to Vegas to the adult film convention or whatever it was, because a few of my friends are in the industry. And my friend Tara Babcock, who's another YouTuber who's actually not a porn star, but that's her actual name, by the way, Tara Babcock. Such a porn star name. We had never met in person, and we only knew each other very briefly. And I think I was like, we should make videos, you know, while we're out there, because that's like, I'm a workaholic. I always want to work and have fun at the same time. And I was going out there to see her and my friend Paige, and she's like, yeah, I looked at your bio and I got nervous. I thought you were going to be this crazy SJW, crazy woke person. And I was like, why? She's like, well, it had women empowerment in your bio with a little rainbow flag. And I was like, oh my God, I can't even have like an LGBT rainbow flag and I can't even have women empowerment in my bio on Twitter without people thinking I'm part of this crazy movement. You know, it's too much. And, you know, that's why people like, you know, Brandon and Blair, and myself are joining like the walk away movement, which is, I guess originally it was all about walking away from the Democratic campaign. But for a lot of us, it has a lot more social implications. It's a lot more social issues as well. It's just like half of the things that the new LGBT people, the more broad spectrum of LGBT people, which is also what we don't agree with, like all the new genders and stuff.
Yeah.
More than half of that stuff is stuff that we didn't sign up for. We signed up for equal rights. At this point, we pretty much have equal rights. There's some states, that have certain issues that we're still working on, but for the most part, we have what we wanted. And now they're coming out, the far left, whatever you want to call them, they're coming out with all these other issues that they're making up as they go along. I'm assuming to stay in business, or maybe in their minds they truly do believe that these are issues. But even if they are issues that they think exist, we didn't sign up for those. So a lot of us are just we're over it, and we're getting kicked out of our own community for what? For fighting before these people even came along. It's crazy.
I was watching that video this morning that you put out, and I just wanted to run off some questions some statements that you made on that. We've talked about the response, and I just want to play devil's advocate on it. Let's just say I'm a mad social justice warrior. I look like one, so let's do it.
You're like a woke bro.
I'm a woke bro. What's up, everybody?
I call them woke bros, yeah.
My beard isn't a neck beard, so it can't. Anyway, so why don't you think that gender is a social construct?
I think the definition of gender, in my opinion, is important. When I say gender, what I mean is, quote, brain gender. And we don't even know if that's a real thing. What we do know, though, is trans people's brains have been proven to look more similar to the sex of the person they feel like they are.
Right.
So that's what I mean when I say gender. Social constructs, it could be like the way somebody dresses, the way somebody's expected to act. That is a social construct, 100%. Sure. Although some of it is biological, because men and women, males and females, do have different hormones and whatever we have in us that does make us act different. It's not all nature. There's definitely some nurture in it, is what I'm trying to say. But for me, when I say gender, that was my thing to remind me to Skype with you. For me, when I say gender, it means, how somebody feels what somebody feels they are in their head. And I don't think that is social. I think that's completely biological. I think trans people are born that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is debate that people have been raging on for a long time, the difference between men and women. And there's no doubt that there is a difference, both physical and biological. Now, with trans people, I think they're in a lot of senses, they're the exception to the rule. Mm-hmm. And saying that someone is different is often always a bit of a touchy subject, so to speak. Right. But people are born different. People are born without legs. People are born without hands. Exactly. People may be born feeling as if they're in the wrong body. And as we said earlier, if you want to change that and it makes you happy, go for it. Right. But gender as in a biological sense, I think is irrefutable. You go out into the jungle and there are male lions acting in a certain way that replicates how males act in the human species, and it is like that throughout. But people, they often say, "Oh, well, seahorses, the males carry the babies." Okay, well, that's fucking seahorses. Good on them. They're very progressive. Well done. I struggle to understand how people can debate the fact that people are different. Men and women are different. And I think it's a good thing. I
don't get it either.
There's so many positives that come with being a man, and there's so many positives that come with being a woman. And that's sort of how our society sort of works. Everyone chips in and we get shit done, or we don't get shit done. For you, and not to talk about sexuality here, being a lesbian, I'm sure you're very happy that women have certain traits that men don't.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Otherwise, I'd be bisexual or pansexual if I didn't notice the difference, because that's literally what bi and pan mean. For you, it doesn't matter, You could be attracted to all types.
All right, so we've covered gender. Now, excuse me while I look at my notes.
Is this going on your podcast or your channel, or where does it go?
Podcast. You're on the podcast right now. Welcome.
Cool. Cute. Okay.
Why don't you believe there are 97 different genders?
Again, I don't think. Well, there are only two. To me, there are only two sexes. When I say sexes, I mean, ways of reproducing, right? So somebody that's capable of producing eggs, somebody that's capable of producing sperm. Those are two sexes. So when I say, mentally, like your gender, I have I don't know. I've never met somebody that identifies as a different gender. That the only way, okay, we'll put it this way. The only way I would believe in different genders is if somebody had like partial dysphoria. Okay. So let's say most transsexual people that I know have dysphoria in their whole body, right? With whatever traits are making them feel like the sex that they don't identify as, right? So let's say a trans woman friend of mine doesn't like her flat chest, she wants breasts, and she doesn't like her penis, she wants a vagina. To me, that would be like considered like full dysphoria. So what if somebody only just wants a deeper voice, or doesn't like their feminine voice, or doesn't mind having a penis but wants breasts? Like, to me, would that be another gender? It depends on how somebody defines gender. Would it be another sex? No, because technically when you take testosterone or you take estrogen, you're going to develop into a more female-like presence or a more male-like presence. Again, there are two sides, right? Yes, it's a spectrum, but still two sides, in my opinion.
So why, and this is obviously a very spaced out question, but why would it matter what you have between your legs if gender is a social construct?
Again, gender meaning, how are you defining gender?
Penis, vagina, I guess. I mean,
okay,
this is the thing. I'm not an expert in the.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to be an expert in anything. I just want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing so we can understand each other. So for you, when you say gender, you mean genitals.
Well, let me just quickly Google.
Okay. Because I think 99% of the time when people argue about this shit, they're using the same words to mean different things.
So this is just dictionary defined. Gender, either of the two sexes, male and female, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological ones. The term is also used more broadly to denote a range of identities that do not correspond to the established ideas of male and female. Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think in that case,
yeah, I guess in that case it's just male, female.
I think most people, when they say like, oh, I'm non-binary or I'm this new gender, I think what they really mean usually is that they don't confine themselves to gender expectations, which is great, but I don't think you need a new word for that. To me, lesbians and gay men have been redefining gender expectations for like hundreds of years. So why can't these new genders do the same thing without becoming new genders? We have feminine gay men, we have butch women, we have masculine women. I have women, friends of mine, that to turn themselves on, they'll wear, a fake penis in their pants. Do they have dysphoria? No, it's more of a kink. Does that mean they're a new gender? No, because they feel comfortable in their body, right? But they are redefining gender stereotypes or gender roles or gender expectations. And even the way they look, right? They present themselves differently physically. So to me, that's what most of these people mean when they say that they're changing, What was the original question?
This is the thing. Like, why is there such a long explanation for something we all sort of know what it means? Like, you almost need a new word here.
Yeah, I think the old definition of gender and the one you read, it's usually meaning, a typical male or female person, because most people do confine themselves to gender expectations, and that's not a problem if you feel comfortable in doing so. The people that vary, mostly lesbian, gay, or just maybe effeminate men or butch women that aren't LGBT, whatever, that shouldn't be considered a new gender.
Yeah, I guess it sort of comes back. Sorry, it sort of comes back to what we said about feminism before. The definition has changed. It's no longer fighting for equal rights. It's almost about, men are evil, female dominance. Which I don't think that being a woman and thinking like women are powerful and all that type of stuff. Like I've had people say that I'm a misogynist and all that type of stuff. I don't think women being powerful is a bad thing at all. But if you go out there and you're just genuinely sexist and you hate dudes because they got dicks, like that's a bad thing, right?
It's terrible, which is why I have to like, I started, okay. So I started an OnlyFans account. I don't know if you could put this in your podcast.
An OnlyFans account.
I did.
I've got a lot to say about OnlyFans accounts.
Please, I would love to hear your thoughts. And I'm not ashamed. It's pretty much content that I've been wanting to post on YouTube that I just can't do it. Like I can't even show my butt. I can't talk about anything too sexual without being demonetized. That kind of stuff, you know?
Sure.
One of the photos I posted recently, I had pasties over my nipples because I'm still not fully comfortable showing those, and I'm probably never going to fully show them. But I wrote out "Stop hating white men" on them because it's true. It's like my dad passed away almost 9 years ago at this point. 9 years ago. He was a cis straight white man, and he meant a lot to me. He was my favorite person in the whole world. He accepted me. He loved me. He was there for me in any way that he could be. I've never had every cis straight white man friend of mine that I've ever had is still here in my life. I've never had any issues with them. So I can't sit here, and it's not like, oh, I'm doing it to like people say that about Blair White. Oh, you're doing it to suck up to the patriarchy. It's like, no, like I genuinely have not had any bad experiences. Even on my OnlyFans, these men that are subscribed, 9 out of 10 of them are really, really respectful. They'll ask me like, oh, do you feel comfortable doing this? And I'll be like, yes or no.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I don't want you to, and they straight up say, I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. I just want to ask. Yeah, no problem. Let's talk about it. Like very, very respectful people. And I think that's also because they're the type of guys that watch my videos. So they know how to talk to me, right? You teach people how to treat you. And you know, it's sad that I've gotten to the point where I have to say like, I'm a lesbian, but no, I don't hate men.
Yeah,
I just
isn't
love
that
men,
strange?
you know what I mean? It's
That's
sad.
crazy. Like,
it's sad. And I've never been that type of person. And people can go back to the beginning of my channel, and I've always made videos about women, focusing on women, but I've always, every once in a while, included gay men or bi men, or even I've helped straight men. I had a few straight guys in my videos, like about different, you know, let's say, oh, how to go down on a girl. Like straight men don't know how to do this, like joking around, but a lot of them don't.
Sure.
Which, of course, they don't. They don't have a vagina.
yeah.
How could they know without having one, right?
Yeah.
Lesbians have the lesbian privilege, right?
It's the same with gay dudes. They've got the equipment.
That's exactly it. And I don't.
They've got
and
the
I'm.
equipment. Like,
They know how to use it. Exactly.
They know how to use it for sure.
Exactly. And I don't mind. I enjoy being that person to help bridge the gap. You know what I mean? So I never want people to assume, you know, that lesbians are hateful or that the LGBT community is hateful. So I made sure I distanced myself, which is, you know, again, what the walk away movement's all about. It's like distancing ourselves from that hateful, you know, troop of people, really.
Yeah. And and on the OnlyFans subject,
Mm-hmm.
now
Yeah.
I've not outspoken in like a negative way. I just like talking shit about it.
You
It's
can say
fun.
it's negative. That's up to you.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. It's not negative at all. You do whatever you want to do. Who gives a shit, right? But
Yeah.
the reason I talk about it in a negative sense or a joking sense is there's this young lady who gets around in my hometown, and my hometown's not small. There's like, you know, 300,000 people that live here. But
Okay.
she, I saw her one night, and she gained a big following on OnlyFans, and she went full porn, the whole thing. And I saw her in a nightclub, and she was standing at the bar and screaming out, "My name's so-and-so. I'm famous on OnlyFans. You need to buy me a drink, or do you know who I am?" And then I was like, oh, well, fuck you. I'm going to make fun of you. That's where my sort of...
I don't act like that at all, but
don't
that's
think you do.
that's for any social media person that has an ego. Like, I'm not a fan of that. I've never been like that. Yeah.
I wouldn't imagine you would act like that. Maybe you should.
No,
Fuck, right?
Obnoxious.
So I've completely... I had a question, and it was a good question.
Take your time.
Now, in that video, you said that you don't believe that genital preferences are transphobic. Now, a lot of people don't know what you're talking about there. I know what you're talking about because I've seen
People talk about the contrary.
people
Yeah.
talk about it on the internet. But a lot of
Right.
people are like, genital preferences, like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? But I know,
Right.
for example, I've heard people say, if you find someone attractive, but then you find out they have a penis, like if you see, and look at Blair White, you know, transgender, looks
Gorgeous.
gorgeous, yeah.
Gorgeous.
But I don't know what her sexual organs are and all that type of stuff. But if you see someone who you're attracted to and then you find out they have a penis and then you don't want to have that penis in your mouth, you are a transphobic, horrible piece of shit.
100%. And people, and a lot of the trans community now is like, people don't say that. Yes, they do. Literally, I can show you like thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that say that. And it's a shame because most of the people that say that aren't actually transgender. They're white knighting, or whatever the white knighting, is that the word? And virtue signaling, speaking for the trans community in the same way a lot of white people are speaking for Black Lives Matter.
Yes, and that's the conversation we had with Zuby last week. It is crazy to see white people screaming at black police officers. You're like, it's ridiculous. What are you doing?
Oh, I can't. I saw 2 black police officers, 2 women. They were actually really attractive too, in the park the other day. And I was like, I always ask any police officer, but especially women, especially black women, and especially black people rather, if they are cops. I always ask, how are you guys doing? Are you guys holding up? Because I know how much shit they're getting. Yeah. They're probably even called like race traitors. Like, I don't fucking know. And I asked how they were and they were like, oh, we're fine. Don't worry about us. And I was like, okay. Well, then I felt stupid for asking, but you know what? Like, no, I'm going to ask anyway because I care. But in Brooklyn, like, it's kind of calm. Like in my area anyway, in New York City, it's kind of like a shit show. Yeah. It's democratic cities. It's really bad over here.
Man, it is.
Certain areas again.
It is the toughest job in the world. Trying to be a police officer.
I do know that. I have a few family members that are cops. Yeah. Right.
And you know, you could go from pulling a deceased baby out of a pool to a traffic stop, then to a drug bust, and you have to, by the letter of the law of your job, act, in a certain way. And I just think, for me personally, I was talking about this with my brother the other day and sort of trying to work out, okay, how do we address the problems with black people? And, that's what black people want, is they want 2 white dudes in Australia trying to work out their issues. And so we basically I came to one conclusion, he came to another. He's like, mate, it doesn't start with the police, it starts something else. And I said, okay, well, you still need to sort out the police, okay? Because I don't think in America, and you'll have a better idea about this than me, I don't think in America that police officers have to go through the rigor that they do in other countries. I know in Australia, you basically have to do a university degree to become a police officer. And we've still got terrible police officers here, people who do the job wrong, just like any job. There's always idiots in every single job, right? Of course, yeah. And I don't know if that's possible in America due to the population. Like, there's just so many people. You need more police and constantly need more police.
100%.
Fair judgment, a fair statement to make?
I think it is. I think from what I understand, I think you do need an associate's degree here. I think. Okay. So you need 2 years of college, I think. And even then you have to take like this big test to at least prove that you're somewhat intelligent. Yeah. Yeah. But that was when an ex-girlfriend of mine was trying to be a cop 10 years ago. At this point, I don't know if that's changed. Sure. But from what I remember, that's what the process was years ago. But that could have changed. But I do think we actually do need more police, but I do think the funding in certain areas can be redistributed to other areas. Okay. You know what I mean? Like there's certain places like in I don't know, in Northern California, maybe, let's say in San Francisco, like, do they need as many police officers? Probably not. You know what I mean? Maybe now they do because all the crazy riots, but like generally speaking, you need them in places more like Chicago, New York, Washington, DC, more democratic, liberal areas where there's also a high crime rate, in the projects and stuff like that. Can there also be a redistribution of funds? I'm sure, but I don't think that's smart to take it away from the police communities that actually need those funds,
The whole defund the police movement is crazy. I think to not defund them, but at least reinvest the wealth into something else rather than just like, getting someone through their 2 years of college and saying, right, you're on the beat now, best of luck. Right. Why wouldn't it be that if you're a police officer, it is a very, very well-paying job, but it is very hard to get. I feel that's the only way to do this. It should be the same with school teachers too. It should be increasingly hard to become a school teacher. You have to have more and more education. Like in Australia, when you finish high school, I'm not sure in America how it works, but there's a thing in New South Wales where I am, there's a thing called an ATAR. It's like a university admission rank. and you get a score out of 100 or something. And if you want to be a doctor or whatever, you got to get like 97 or whatever it happens to be. I think I got like 66. So I'm a bit of a dumb shit. But anyway,
some people just aren't good at taking tests. Neither am I. I did not perform well in my SATs, but I'm living life to the best of my ability. So,
But I got, so 97 to become a doctor, but I got a rank that would allow me to become a school teacher and teach the youth of tomorrow. And I just think that's crazy, because I'm someone who, I just didn't really care about school. I sort of had my eyes on other things and doing this and that. And, you get to like 18 years old and you're in year 12 or grade 12 or wherever you are in America, and you start going, I'd rather just go and drink with my friends. I know the age is 21 over there, but here it's 18. So you basically can go into pubs and clubs and stuff. And it just seems to me that it's the same thing with the police. People go, maybe people go to that job for the wrong reasons. Maybe they do that in some circumstances. In other circumstances, like in your family, perhaps, they go, well, hey, my uncle, this, that, my auntie, they were police officers. This is what we do in this family. We protect the community. And maybe that's a really beautiful thing to do. I don't know. I feel like it is too easy to become a cop, and it is such a hard job.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, maybe that is the issue. Maybe they have to be better trained, but also better paid. And maybe that's the issue. But there also has to be more of them, which is going to cost more money.
Yeah.
But then again, maybe we can use the better trained cops and more cops to prevent people going to prison, so we would save money with that. Like I don't know how this works, but there's got to be a better way to do it. I agree with you. Yeah.
There's and that's not the full answer with particularly black communities. I mean, I was watching a Louis Theroux documentary, and I'm not sure of the number. If I was a decent reporter of the news, I would have looked this up like a week ago when I was talking about it. But there is a high number of African-American men who are involved in violent crime, who I think it's like 80%, their fathers are in jail. It's like, what else do you do? That's your role model. Where does that go? Where does that lead you?
That's what Candace Owens and her manager, Gina, I actually have a video coming out tomorrow with Gina about that, and about how we feel the main issues with black community is not police brutality, but it's in fact high abortion rates, high rate of fatherless homes, black people being treated unfairly in regards to crime if they have the same crime as a white person, so to speak. And it's I know this is somebody that Gina went to Harvard. She's very brilliant. She's studied and worked for the black community. She's not black herself. She's Asian, I think, of some sort of Asian. I forget where. And she's worked with these people literally her entire life. She was from Savannah, Georgia. That's one of the most heavily black populated cities in the country.
Okay.
And of course we're going to get shit for it, but it's the truth. That it's fatherless homes apparently is a major cause of this. How do you fix that? I don't know. Maybe more social workers. Like I really don't know. I wish I did, because obviously the last thing as a feminist that I would want would be a woman having a harder life, or anybody having a harder life, obviously. But I obviously have a soft spot. I'm a woman. I have a soft spot for women.
Yeah, but that's not saying that if you're a woman and you got an abusive husband, you need to keep him in the relationship because you don't want.
Fuck that. But you should.
Sorry.
Right, but ideally, I think it is best for somebody to have not necessarily two parents, but multiple people that are there for the kid.
Yeah.
Right. Because one of my best friends is a single parent. She's a lesbian, just wanted to have kids. She's due any day now for her second baby. An amazing mother.
Yeah.
But she has other people. She has uncles. She has her friends there. Like it's not just her raising the baby. She's the only parent, but there's multiple people helping this kid if the kid needed something, And to me, that alone is a big deal.
But there's other things. It's not just a male figure. Like, as you said, it can be
they're living in poverty or whatever. Yeah.
But like, for example, if you've got a young child, you're a single mother, you're working two jobs trying to keep everything afloat. If that young man goes and, for example, trains in a martial art and learns this ability to be introspective and have discipline and those type of things, surely the rates of violent crime as his life is extended, it has to go down. I think it just comes down to having constant positive reinforcement and not being surrounded by crime. I think once you have crime around people, then that's just what they sort of they drift towards, which is obviously extremely bad. But I also want to say that there is definitely exceptions to the rule. I'm sure there's heaps of lesbian couples out there that have great young sons who go on to do amazing things. And in the same vein, I'm sure there's gay men out there who have young daughters that go on to be very feminine and happy individuals who go on to raise great sons or in another lesbian relationship, whatever. Like there's
Exactly.
I think you have to explain that. And you know, you've been on YouTube for a long time, but you know, this whole the progressive movement hasn't been around for the 10 years you've been on there. It's only the last couple of years it's really
last 4 years, yeah.
Right. It's really gained traction. You have to be so careful what you say, and there has to be caveats to everything you say, and you have to define everything you say. You can't just say one thing. You just got to go, like, even when I said, as I said before, of course lesbians have good sons. Like, that's just obviously. You don't need to say that in my circle of friends. You don't need to say that, but on the internet you have to. Otherwise, you get picked apart because there are mental.
It's not even what you say. It's what you don't say now too.
Right. Now, one of the things that I don't understand, and I'd like you to define it for me, is TERF. What is a TERF?
Okay. The definition of it, it's an acronym. It stands for trans exclusionary radical feminism. Right. So that means that you don't include trans people in your feminism, which, in my opinion, for me as a label, is actually very inaccurate, because I do. I think there are certain things that affect trans women that needs to be included in feminism. And I also think that there are certain things that affect trans men that needs to be included in feminism, because some trans men can get pregnant. And as a feminist, I personally am pro-choice. So that would affect trans men and not trans women, right? And right. It's because feminism isn't all social. Some of it is biological. So certain talking points and certain issues affect certain issues affect people based on their gender expression, right? Or if they present as a man or they present as a woman. And some issues affect somebody based on their sex. So feminism, in my opinion, should be a combination of both. And, you know, when people say that I'm a TERF, I think what they really mean is that, you know, I say things that they don't agree with, yes. which is fine.
It's a label to discredit you. That's all.
It's not an accurate label for me, in my opinion.
I mean, you know, that's their checkmate position. You know, I get called the white supremacist and misogynist.
You're racist, you're a Nazi, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well.
All that shit. You know, and I'm sure you get all that type of stuff and TERFs and schwerfs and all that type of business. Right. But the queen of the TERFs at the moment is J.K. Rowling. Now, I know you've made a video recently
She's
about
amazing.
I mean, you know, she is probably one of the most creative people that has lived in this generation. And
literally. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and most unfortunately at the moment, like I saw the other day, someone was saying they're covering up their J.K. Rowling tattoos, and I'm going to pull up some of the tweets. Can you give the people a bit of a background on what's happening here?
Yeah, so from what I understand, I do have a bit of a bias here, obviously, because J.K. Rowling pretty much agrees with me on everything. But I will try to be as unbiased as possible. But from what I understand, there was this woman called Maya Forstater, I believe, back in December, that was fired from her job for simply saying that sex is real, you know, that sex exists, and that sex traits and sex differences exist. And J.K. Rowling defended her and got a lot of shit, was called a TERF, blah, blah, blah. And since then, she had started speaking up, you know, more, I would say, more feminist talking points in regards to sex. But that's not to say, this is my bias speaking, that's not to say that she doesn't respect trans people's identities, that she doesn't think that trans people are valid and real. And these are also things that she stated on Twitter. But of course, you know, she doesn't completely say everything, quote, perfectly, or in line with, you know, the super progressive woke left. She gets canceled with everything that she says. But, you know, I have friends like Blair White and Buck Angel that have, reviewed the videos and tweets and stuff, and they don't have any issues with it.
So
It's mostly very young, super far left progressives that, find fault in literally anything somebody says or even doesn't say.
Yeah.
Right? You don't post a black box. You didn't say anything, but you're still racist, because it's not even enough to be not racist. You have to be anti-racist. How the hell does anti-racist mean something different than non-racist anyway? That's another thing I don't get. That's besides the point, maybe.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I absolutely know what you're talking about.
Too much.
Jay, no, you froze on the screen there when you were talking, and you froze when you leaned back, and your mouth was like, so it just looked like I'll have to change it. Yeah, a bit of editing, a bit of swift editing. Otherwise, it just looks like you're yelling.
Probably.
But J.K. Rowling.
Somebody will fix the edit and make it be like, look what Arielle said. She was yelling at this poor dude.
I'll throw any audio in there. On the 6th of June, she said, the author of Harry Potter, said, if sex isn't real, there is no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone forgets about that bit.
Of course they do.
But erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate speech to speak the truth. And this is the thing, like she's
right. Like people forget the simple fact. She said the lived experience of a woman. Like, she literally has her pen name as J.K. Rowling because her publishers told her that if she had a female name, people wouldn't buy the book.
Yep.
That's not a fucking statement that if that's not something that only affects females in that way, kill me now. You know what I mean? Like, that is the most women lived experience you could have. That doesn't mean that males also don't have experiences for simply being male, right? Not saying that. There's male privileges, there's female privilege. But to say that trans women or trans men have exactly the same experiences as people that are born the sex they identify as is ridiculous. Every trans person, every true trans rational person knows that that's not true. Rather knows that is true, that we don't have the same experiences, rather.
Yeah.
Like, I think she's hitting more on feminist points rather than, the new version of the radical trans agenda, so to speak, That's why I think that's also why there's a big push right now for people calling themselves transsexuals rather than transgender.
Okay.
From what I understand, people that are calling themselves transsexuals are people that actually have made an effort and physically transitioned in some way.
Is that an offensive word though? Transsexuals? I thought you can't use that word.
They're reclaiming it. They're reclaiming it at this point, I think. Yeah, they're reclaiming it.
They're dusting it off, ready to go. Okay.
They're dusting it off, and they're like, well, because transgender at this point, there's not, like, literally, I can be transgender because if you go and look at the definition, I think it's on the Human Rights Campaign or one of the LGBT websites, the definition of transgender fits every single gay and lesbian person.
Right.
Because it's so vague and ridiculously vague. I think the definition said anyone a trans person could be anybody that doesn't fit into or gender variant, so to speak. So it doesn't fit into gender stereotypes, which is true for a gay or lesbian person, right? Because technically, as a woman, I'm expected to date men.
Yes.
And I date women, so I'm not experiencing that gender stereotype. So I am going against it. Does that mean I'm trans? According to that definition, it does, which is ridiculous. So I think because the definition became so broad, more trans people that are experiencing dysphoria that have made an effort to transition in some way are reclaiming the word transsexuals,
And good on them. Like,
good on them. Good on them, yeah.
Like, I mean, this is the thing, and this is the thing about being on the internet all the time. Zuby and I had this chat as well. You get stuck in the mud in all these conversations, and they don't exist in the real world. Like, no one is arguing about genders on a building site. Like,
right.
Or in an office block, people are just like, yeah, whatever. I got to get home to pick up the kids at 4:30 from soccer. They don't care. It's not a real thing. And I think we need to remember that. But also having people speaking out for the silent majority, and particularly in your community, like to have someone come out and disagree. And, there's others as well, like Blair White, people actually coming out and speaking what they believe to be true, not personal truth. I take issue with the idea of personal truth. There's either truth or there's not, but what you believe to be the reality of the situation, and not just keeping that secret, because there is people all over the internet that will shout you down and continue to do that as you step out of line, as you don't conform to their doctrine. And I think the last question I wanted to ask you, Arielle, was, how do you feel about, the LGBT community? How do you feel about everything else being lumped in with that community? Like, if you're gay or a lesbian, you're also now attached to every single other, sexual orientation. You're either straight or you're a part of this giant group.
I think that it's well-intentioned, possibly, because I think that they want to make everybody feel welcome. But the problem with it is anybody who disagrees with whatever new things that they're, progressing on, drag kids, trans women in women's prisons who haven't transitioned at all, trans women in sports, gay trans men that are calling, that are calling cis gay men who have dicks transphobic if they don't want to, fuck their vagina, whatever. These are all, issues that we're expected to get behind that we might not agree with.
Yeah.
And there's diversity in every sense of the word except diversity of thought in our community. And once I saw that was a main problem, I started to exit, because I think that's the most important thing is getting out of the echo chamber and seeing everybody's point of view. Yeah. You might not agree with it, but I will listen to what they have to say. I might not agree with it again, but I listen. And sometimes my opinions do change, right? That's the beauty of growth. But at least I know that I'm basing my opinion off of, a wide range of experiences, so to speak.
Yeah. And I think that so much right now in the world is based off science, except for when it comes to gender politics, and everyone just covers their ears. And I think that people just cannot deal with that because it is so obvious to everybody else. Like, as you said before, a man can get pregnant now, and I'm cool with that. Like, that's fine. But when it comes down to the nitty and gritty about like just gender, social constructs and stuff, it turns out that that's not true. I'm happy to call a man who's pregnant a man, that's fantastic. Wonderful. You're happy. You got a smile on your face. Bravo. Congratulations.
Right.
But when you start arguing the science of different things, and that all just goes out the window, I just feel like we're in this sort of this ball of mess, or this weed that's just sort of floating through the sky, and where is the end game here? I guess that's the question.
Again, I think the end game is never ending.
Yeah,
I do, because I think these people are never happy.
Yeah,
no matter what you say, even if you say trans people are wonderful, people would probably be like, well, why don't you showcase their voices more? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why wouldn't you do that? And it's like, no matter what you do, you don't do enough.
Yeah.
I think these types of people, I actually, believe it or not, think they enjoy being oppressed in a very strange way. I think they enjoy being victimized. And I think it's because there's a lot of internalized hate for either themselves. It doesn't matter if they're LGBT. I think there's internalized hate for whatever reason. There's a lot of these people that are spewing this rhetoric. A lot of them aren't even LGBT themselves. They'll call themselves non-binary because they have different color hair, and there's a lot of them are young kids, and I think a lot of them have many other issues besides being LGBT, if that winds up being an issue for them. Just because you're LGBT doesn't mean it's an automatic issue, but for some people it does turn into an issue, right?
I think mental illness is somewhere in there, and that's very, very taboo to say that.
No, it is. It's true.
Well, you just can't say it though. Like, you will literally.
I'll tell you from my experience, LGBT people are twice as likely to have anxiety and depression issues.
Now, is that because they're oppressed?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's nurture and nature. I think that. But when I was a kid, I was always a little bit more anxious than most kids. So I think, and at that point, I didn't even know that I was a lesbian, so I think our brains are just a little different. But I think it also has to do with society. But you can't just blame society. You can't just blame your brain. I think it's a mixture of both in this case.
Yeah, I think in a lot of the situations here, we're looking at people who, since religion has become less important in people's lives, and I'm not a religious person, but I feel like, being non-binary is a religion, or being this is a radical feminist is a religion.
They need something bigger to connect. 100%.
And it helps with things like anxiety and stuff to feel like they belong to something. And I get that, and connect on
100%.
something. But I think in the long term, the long game here, I think being a part of something that is negative, that is hateful, like a lot of these groups are, unfortunately, will only do your mental health a large disservice. It is detrimental completely toward
absolutely,
your outcome as an individual. But I think having people like yourself who comes out and speaks about things that to be true, the science of the situation, the reality of someone who's living in that group of society, and I applaud you for that. Well done. I know that's why you did it, to get my praise. So congratulations. You've gone against the status quo, and people will continually go out against people like yourself. And I know there's one dude that went out against you, and that's Vosh. That guy,
an idiot,
crazy.
He's a goddamn idiot. He's a woke bro, but in my opinion, crazy. You can record this if this part, like whatever.
Yeah.
Crazy misogynist, in my opinion. Unbelievably, ridiculously a misogynist.
He went on his channel and to his stream of all these woke bros and said that because I yell at a camera, and because I was reacting to a feminist TikTok about underarm hair, that I was a child groomer. And he basically went out and said that this bloke's a child groomer. And like, I take fucking issue with that. That's not cool. Like, you call me whatever you want. You call me, transphobic, misogynist, but you start saying shit like that. Like, that's that.
People throwing out really bad labels way too quickly these days.
Like, that's the worst thing you can be. A pedophile is the worst thing you can be.
I know. And
this prick's going out saying that. Like, I was fucking filthy, to use an Australian term. I was fucking filthy, but you can't, it's the internet. You can say whatever you want. Defamation's very hard to prove and all that type of shit. But he did apologize, pussy.
Did he really?
Yeah. Stick to your guns, Boshy. Oh, Arielle, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. No, I really enjoyed this. This was a nice little Friday night treat for me.
Thank you very much. Now, how can people find you? Where can they go? All that type of business. What's the best plug?
I would say just search Arielle Scarcella or Arielle Lesbian on YouTube, and I'll come up.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to find me.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, be a motherfucking piece of Middle East, big stick. See you later. Toodaloo, bye-bye.